Good morning. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is the morning dump. It's Tuesday, July 28th. I'm your host, Jose Galison, and this is the kitty of the day, Toasty. She's one of the mamas of our cattery. She is freshly preggers. You can, as I've taught you guys, can kind of tell by their nips. You can tell those things are weirdly pink and weirdly big right now. So you can tell the impregnation was successful, so she'll have babies here pretty dang soon. I think like in a month and a half or so. And then I also have kitties coming here soon that I'll be able to show off to you guys, and they get a little bit bigger, and I move them to the kitty room. But with that, if you guys like seeing my hot takes, typically Monday through Friday around 11 a.m. Eastern is what we shoot for. We don't always make it on time. We don't always make it every day, but that's what we're going for. Or if you just like seeing the kitties of the day, like this beautiful black and white bicolor girl, Toasty, the sweet mama, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications. That way you can see when we're dropping new videos and when we're going live. And with that, we'll see you in the show.
Beautiful thing, right now.
Rise and shine, it's a beautiful day. I am alright.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
This is the bridge to the white lights.
Our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad.
Crazy evil.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are having a good one. Hope your week's going well. Still early in the week, but hey, we're getting through. We persevere. We have plenty to go through with you guys today. As always, we start the show off with some Icebreaker content, the fun, the funny, the gem pop, slop, that sort of stuff, something to sort of ease our way into our hangout here. Today is no exception. We'll be starting out with that, and then we will get into our foreign policy roundup, get into the world of war, what's going on over there. And then we will get into the first titled segment of the day, Agent Epstein. Have a few more stories to go through there, Epstein related, particularly on that realm, and even more specifically in the South America area. We'll be focusing on some of the espionage empire that Epstein has put together in that region. And then we'll continue our dredge through the secret history of Polymarket. We're coming near to an end. We'll probably I've been digging it, so I think we only got a few more left. But today should be an interesting one. We'll get into the Napster guy, kind of getting into his details. So looking forward to that dig. Now, a little bit of a reminder for those, if this is your first time or you're kind of new here. The format of the show, I call it an info dump format. We're just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall. Most of the stuff is stuff we've not processed together. A lot of times it's like kind of newer stuff. Sometimes it's stuff we've processed, but just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff, Twitter, bookmarks, articles, videos, clips, et cetera, et cetera. Just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff together, making some topics, making it work. So it's kind of, it's a production. It's like I said, you're throwing at the wall. It's not super produced here. So it kind of is what it is. This is what you're getting. So that way you're aware. But now I do try to accommodate those who don't hang out for the live stream here. Now, this is meant to be a live interactive experience, but most of you guys who watch us actually watch it, don't end up catching it live, which totally makes sense. But to accommodate those people, we put timestamps in the video/podcast description. That way you can jump around from topic to topic and you can avoid the chat banter, kind of making it more like a podcast experience as opposed to a live stream. But now for those who are here for the live experience, I do try to give everyone at least one good morning After that, you got to catch my interest or catch my wallet. Wallet, obviously, being super chat, or also a little bit kind of. I'm pretty good at knowing who are my people, who are the patrons out there. So I have a little bit of bias there. So I keep an eye out for my fellas, and there's a little bit of bias going on there. And you get other perks as well if you decide to support in that way. In the top left-hand corner here over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020, in the show, I'll list some of the other perks you get as a result. But those are your options. Luckily, also, I have the attention of a squirrel, so it's pretty easy to grab my attention. But with that, let's go ahead and get into some icebreaker content, and then we will get into the chat, talk to you beautiful people. But let's go ahead and get into it, get into the icebreaker stuff. We've got a new accent that AOC has debuted, so I'm kind of looking forward to this. Like, as I tell you guys, it's kind of most of the stuff I'm processing this with you guys in real time. So I purposely didn't watch this because I just kind of want to experience it with you guys. Sometimes you hear this in the world every now and then. Some of these characters will bring, this person has a new accent, that person, and sometimes there's some truth to it, and sometimes it feels like they're maybe making a mountain out of a molehill. I also, I guess, to give some of these people that they accuse of it, I guess the tiniest bit of like benefit of the doubt, I guess I could see myself falling to this. I sort of have multiple accents in a way. I guess you could say I almost have like 3. I have like kind of just how I normally talk, which I don't know if it's, I guess I don't really think I have a particular accent, but I mean, some people probably obviously would. But I was born in Maine. I moved to Tennessee about halfway through high school. And so as a result, I actually have I have multiple accents, and they kind of come and go depending on kind of generally who I'm around, and it's completely not it's not intentional really at all. It's just kind of one of those things you just subtly just find yourself doing it. The times when I've gone back to Maine to spend time, with family or something over there, I find myself saying stuff like wicked, piss out, holy shit, kind of doing the New England accent, kind of comes out a little bit. But in the South, when I'm hanging out over in Tennessee, you see the Southern drawl start to come out a little bit more, hear more y'alls and stuff like that. So who knows? Maybe some of these people, some of these politicians have jumped around. Maybe they have genuinely picked up some accents, so they find themselves in these political scenarios with all these people of a given region. Let's say they're in Tennessee or something. Maybe you'd find yourself incidentally, maybe you did spend some time in Tennessee and you just accidentally find yourself, kind of dialing up the accent a little bit more. Maybe we can attribute some of this to that, but I don't quite think so. So we're going to go through a little bit of that. Let's find out. I mean, I'm kind of leaving it open for how bad this is going to be. I'm not entirely sure, but because sometimes you see the grifter Republicans or whatever, or vice versa. If it's, they're accusing they'll make a mountain out of a molehill, and it's kind of this like gay kind of left-wing, right-wing nonsense where you're like, that wasn't that bad. Let's check it out. Let's see. I'm leaving it open. Let's find out. Here we go. Here is AOC. Here's the new accent. Let's listen in.
We cannot afford to leave Tennessee behind. We cannot afford to leave Kentucky behind, Alabama behind, Mississippi behind, Georgia behind, South Carolina behind.
Whatever. I mean, that's not too bad. I think I saw other clips of this. Maybe I'm going to show a couple other clips of other politicians doing ridiculous accents. But I'm going to see if maybe we can find another one, because I thought there might have been I saw longer ones, but that's really not bad at all. I mean, that is totally within the realm to me of believable, of you just kind of accidentally hammed it up a little bit. You may have just were around people talking a certain way, and you find yourself incidentally, as a result, kind of putting a little bit of a different stank on what you're saying. And even then, this is barely an accent. So I don't know. I feel like this is, this is the clip. I know, like I said, I'll look for another one here in a sec. I thought I saw another clip, but just here's Hillary from back in the day. Let's check this out.
Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Nobody told me the road would be easy.
I don't know why they threw Biden in there too, but here's Biden.
I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
That one's kind of weak. What else we got? We got some more. So you got some people in these comments. Here's a fun little video. Actually, here's one. Now, this one's somewhat legit. This is going into the background of AOC. Check this one out. This is actually interesting. A lot of people aren't aware of the seemingly look almost as if AOC was a role, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at here. But without any further ado, here's a little clip. I think Elon posted this or something, which whole other set of issues there. But either way, seems probably pretty much right on the money here with AOC, saying AOC is just an actor. It's her puppet masters of the problem. She is spouting insane lies. They're disprovable by Google search, but a lot of people believe her. I have no idea what Elon is referring to in this scenario, though, like what he's upset about with AOC, because, given Elon, it could literally be something as simple as, like, we should stop funding Israel. So either way, though, AOC is a political actor. Sometimes she does tend to be more in the realm of stuff that I guess people watch this show would sort of believe. Obviously not economically, but when it comes to, like, war and stuff like that. But kind of one of those perfect examples of somebody who's probably almost certainly a controlled op. And here's some more to that.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not really the Congresswoman of New York's 14th Congressional District. She is essentially an actress. She's merely playing the part of a New York Congresswoman. I know this sounds crazy, but bear with me. In 2017, a group called the Justice Democrats held auditions for potential congressional candidates that they would run on their platform for various congressional seats throughout the country. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's brother Gabriel submitted her for the role. Now, I've auditioned for many acting roles in my day. I've also cast many of my own projects. I know how this works. If you find somebody with star power, even if they don't 100% fit the part, you go with it. Obviously, AOC has star power. Just look at her. She's a superstar, the most famous person in Congress, maybe ever. Their casting was perfect. Now, I didn't have to go digging for evidence for this because they freely admit it. They brag about it.
Back in 2016, we put out a call for nominations. We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
My brother told me that he had sent my nomination in the summer, but I was like literally working out of a restaurant. I was like, there's no way.
A casting call. They had a casting call. They cast Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the role of Congresswoman.
What you're hearing here is absolutely true. AOC is a political actor, and it is confirmed by multiple sources. What happened was, in 2017, Justice Democrats, formed by Bernie Sanders, put out a public casting call for nominations for a congressional candidate. They had over 10,000 nominations. Her brother is the one who submitted her name into the application. She wasn't even interested. She's only in there because her brother submitted the application for her. The Justice Democrats then vetted the nominees, and she was a strong fit because she aligned with all the garbage that Democrats push. And if you look at this, Democrats groomed her. They provided her with training, resources, and support for her campaign. So she had no interest. She's just somebody who went to a political casting call. She got chosen out of 10,000 candidates, and here we go. She got elected.
Okay. All right. Yeah, definitely a political actor, but I don't know. Let's move on. I do think this is kind of, a bit of a dud, but I did want to go through with you guys. I did have a suspicion it was going to be a bunch of nothing. Do you guys think it's a bunch of nothing? I think this is a nothing burger. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do get there is a little bit of almost an emphasis, a little bit of an accent put on there, but it's really not that noticeable. And I don't know. It just seems like, this just seems like picking at bullshit. Like, I don't know. This just seems silly. I mean, I feel like I vaguely recall much better. By the way, I did actually look while that clip was playing, because I had thought I'd seen a longer clip or some more of this. No, it's literally just this 15-second clip that all of the right-wingers are freaking the fuck out about, which, I mean, it's barely distinguishable as, like, an accent, frankly, to me. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm from the South, so, like, whatever she's going for there, maybe that is just but I don't know. It sounds like nothing to me. But moving on, let's check in. This kind of leading into our foreign policy coverage. You've heard on the war on terror. Well, now we're getting into the war on explosive diarrhea. Apparently, Trump is saying that Mexico is going to be punished for the lettuce that caused this recent batch of explosive diarrhea. A lot of people may have heard about, like, the Taco Bell, poopy pants, dilemma going on right now. I had only heard about it with my kids. I guess they made a big thing about it. I mean, I think we mentioned once maybe going to Taco Bell. Nope, poop. Apparently, it has something to do with lettuce coming from Mexico. I have zero intention right now looking further into context here because I want to leave it at just this because this is beautiful. Trump threatening Mexico for poop lettuce. We'll leave it at that. That is what's going to be the next war. That's what it's going to kick off. The rumble down under over in South America and Central America. It's going to be over the lettuce. But with that, let's go ahead and get into the chat. Check in on you, beautiful people. See what you guys got to say. Good morning, Shannon Jones. Good morning, good morning, good morning, OG Matzo Balls. Good morning. Good morning, user Chathead. Send 3 dumps in one day. I don't know where you're getting 3. Are you watching 3 dumps? What are you talking about? I'm doing this dump right now, and then I'm doing one. I'm doing it already dead later tonight. So I guess you could almost consider that a second one. I don't know what you're talking about. Good morning, King David. Good morning. Good morning. Reminding you guys to hit that like button and subscribe. Yes, please. Help a brother out. Good morning, Tom33. Good morning. Good morning. Giving us a suggestion of a segment name idea. Dumpster fire of the day. Yeah, I could see that. I don't know if I'd want to make it like completely daily, which I guess speaking of things along daily or weekly or giving some sort of periodic bit to it, the weekly Wolfsons, I think, are taking a temporary hiatus, at least for now. I don't know what all Matt's. I think Matt's like moving and some other stuff, so he's got things going on right now. So we're taking a little bit of break. But with that, I guess if there's that opens me up for a whole other day for recording. So because I usually, for those who want to know how the sausage is made, I usually Tuesdays. I have my mornings and my afternoons. Mornings are morning dumps, and then I have my afternoons, and my afternoons are available or night/afternoons are typically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's what I have available. Tuesday I do Already Dead. Wednesday we were doing the weekly Wolfsons, and Thursday I usually some sort of, whether it's continuation on one of the series or interview or whatever. Try to do something. So, but with that, Wednesday's open now too, so that gives me a whole other day. So if there's any ideas for episodes that you guys have, feel free to holler at me. If there's any guests you want me to get on the show, whatever, or appearances, this also opens me up more for appearances. I'm typically pretty stingy, and I don't reply a lot about people trying to get me to come on their show because I don't typically have a whole lot of time to do that, and I kind of don't really want to be honest, most of the time, depending on who it is. But with that, it opens me to that. It's good to spread it out about a little bit. Go out on appearances. So with that, hey, feel free to throw the name around, suggest anybody that you'd like on this show, whatever. So because I'm going to have a little bit of an opening. But yeah, dumpster fire of the day. I don't know, not a bad idea. I'll think on it. I'll maybe come back to it. Good morning, Bobo. Good morning. Good morning, retardo. Bobo says, so crazy seeing Jose now versus the old episodes of Tower Gang that I started rewatching. You started rewatching Tower Gang? That is quite the trip. I don't even want to think about me now versus then. I don't know if it's just good or bad. I don't know. Just weird. It'd be a little bit jarring for me. Good morning, Just Will says, I hope you all have a very gay, joyous, and cheerful day. Remember, we're taking gay back. Yes, take gay back, you homos. Good morning, Bug Fights. Good morning, Bug Fights again. Doubling up on both platforms. Love it. Bobo's accusing me of being a code switcher. I guess I am, Yeah, see, Tom says accents change all the time. Whether or not it sounds forced, that matters. Yeah, and I don't know. That didn't feel... it could have been forced, but if AOC was forcing it there, it was pretty subtle. I felt like it was fairly subtle. So I don't know. It didn't feel forced to me. So, what else we got here? Yeah, Tom saying, though, that she's from New York, shouldn't be picking up a Southern black lady accent. Actually, let's look up. I'm curious. AOC, early life, maybe? Is that what we look? Early life? Because I'm curious. Is she only from there? Because it would be weird to pick up any of that whatsoever. Born in 1989 in the Bronx, grew up in Parkchester neighborhood, comes from a working-class Puerto Rican family. So maybe you could throw a Puerto Rican thing in there, not seeing anything about her moving around. So that was just a quick Google, though. So I don't know. But yeah, I guess it doesn't seem entirely natural, but it does seem a stretch to do this whole gay, right-wing, you got accent. You're like... Maybe? I don't know. Maybe she was just feeling herself, okay? Maybe she was just in the moment. She was vibing. Come on. Bobo points out, I guess with Hillary though, she's actually from Arkansas. So yeah, that makes sense. Maybe a little drawl. Although, is Arkansas, is that like kind of like a southern? Is it like a drawl thing? I feel like it kind of also has like a southern dialectic of, or not dialectic. Is it what word am I looking for there? Not dialectic. The way someone speaks. Dialect. Whatever. I don't know. I'm mixing up words now. Good morning, Sean Newman. Saying Cream Puff was the oldest known cat from 67 to 2005. 38 years old. Bug fights. This caught me off guard earlier, made me laugh. Says I can't not talk black when talking to black people. Exactly. So this is the dilemma AOC is going with. She's at the southern audience. She wants to just like kind of fit in and put on a little bit of a southern drawl. Oh, it's so fun to talk like it. So who doesn't want to put on a political speech with a fire and brimstone like southern preacher type accent? That fucking slaps. I mean, that's like what you dream of as some like if you're some little girl who aspires for political ambitions like. One day I'm going to deliver an MLK speech, and you know what? She got her moment. But yeah, I do like that bit. Like, just like anytime you're at a black person, like, yo, shit, dog, what's up? And they're like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? But yeah, but even then, yeah, people do even kind of do that. People make fun of white people, but it is like a thing. Like, if you are talking about, like, with a bunch of people who have put on a little bit, you do find yourself naturally, not even meaning to, you kind of, it's almost like you're meeting someone's level to some degree. And it's, don't mean that in like a demeaning way. I'm just meaning like, I feel like verbally people do tend to kind of like meet the difference sort of thing or cut the difference. Bobo says, AOC once said she was Jewish to a group of Jewish men in a speaking arrangement in New York. She probably is. Who fucking knows? I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. Good morning, Tower Gang NPC. Say good morning, nerds. Got the boys down for nap just in time. Hell yeah. See, aggressively agreeing gets it. This is the right way to look at it. I just hear the woman accent, immediately tune out. That's the right move. Good morning to you, though, aggressively agreeing. Good morning, Alien Big Cat. What else we got? Oh, user chatted. He took two poops this morning. I get it now. That's where the three dumps come from. Good morning, Brandon Kramer. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Tara Jackson. Good morning, Art of the Personal Story with 10 joules. Still not quite entirely sure how this currency system's working, but thanks. I guess I mean, you could be giving me a lot. You could be giving me nothing. I really have no idea if this currency at all in any way translates to actual currency or if there's some sort of like actual use of it other than just sending weird little emojis to each other on YouTube. But either way, appreciate it. Here's some more. Got 2 joules. From Our The Personal Story, appreciate it. What else we got? Tower Gang NBC rejoined the old Tower Gang Patreon. Well, I don't know who's making money from that, but I sure as shit ain't. So I did not realize the Patreon was still active. So that's interesting. I guess it's still out there. People can still make some money off it. Not telling you not to. Hey, whatever. Whoever's making money off it, I guess good for them. It's probably Toad, to be honest. So fuck it. Whatever. Go sign up for the Patreon. Over on Tower Gang, hey, Toad could use it. I still don't think he has a job. So, what else? Top 3 says I'll bust out some foghorn, leghorn type shit every now and then. Yeah, the way that all the conservatives were talking about this, I kind of was like half expecting like some foghorn, leghorn, like AOC shit. So like that's part of why I was kind of like, oh, okay, well this is really it. Like, all right, yeah. I think Tara's agreeing with me right now here. She says, I don't know either, LOL, and that's my, oh, never mind, I'm retarded. I thought you were said accent there. I misread what you were saying there. You were talking about the jewels and not understanding how it works. Yeah, I just know some recently too. I used a bunch of them. No idea what the purpose of them are other than just to send cool little emojis to people, I don't know, content creators you like. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into some foreign policy. Check in on what's going on in the world of war. We got a little update on the casualties going on. No new deaths, but we're kind of honing in on the casualties here. So since July 7th, 4 U.S. troops have been killed in the Iran war, and more than 200 have been wounded, because we hone in a lot on those deaths. But I don't think a lot of people realize how many people have actually been wounded in there as well, because it kind of seemed like far less of a big deal when you just realize there's only, don't get me wrong, 4 people dead, that's awful, but you're like, you just think that's a handful of incidents that happened. But when you realize, like, no, there's actually been 200 people, over 200 people that have been wounded here, then you realize there's a whole lot more going on than just a handful of people dying. The 4 dead U.S. soldiers include 3 who were killed on July 17th Iranian missile attack on a U.S. base in Jordan, and they have been identified as Private Isabella Gonzalez, 19, absolutely tragic, of Carrollton, Texas. First Lieutenant Tyler James Fian, 25, Iwa Beach, Hawaii, and Sergeant Angel Rampersad, 28, of Ozone Park. The 4th soldier died on July 18th in Iraq, identified as Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton. So we do have, I guess, a new, I believe... No, we had already gotten this identification. Yeah, we talked about him the other day. He was a 30-year-old dad from North Carolina. Really sad hearing from his wife. Obviously she was expecting him to come back, as most people do during these sorts of things. So one more reason, don't let your boys and girls go off to join the military, even if they think, because as I've pointed out with most of these people's career fields, these are the sort of career fields that most of them probably thought they weren't really going to be seeing combat. I think we went to a couple of the different guys, and they were all like missile defense and nerd shit like that. So sitting in some fucking missile silo or something somewhere, probably operating interceptors. I think with the missile defense one. So the sort of, usually they're kind of positioned where they probably thought, hey, we're not going to really ever see any sort of issues, because that's typically how warfare has gone down for the United States and other countries for quite a while now. But we're fighting but they're fighting an enemy that's, they put all their bases right exactly in range of. So here we are. But yeah, just awful. Database says that 207 U.S. troops were also wounded, including 182 U.S. Army soldiers, 21 U.S. Navy personnel, and 4 U.S. Air Force airmen. Many of the wounded sustained injuries during Iranian attacks on U.S. bases in Jordan, which became a frequent target of IRGC during the latest exchange of strikes, which have been paused since Friday. The 211 casualties are considered part of overseas operations, which began on July 7th, as the Pentagon separated them from the earlier casualties in the war. So we're kind of leading into how they're trying to pull off this whole war power shenanigans, because we're in this weird political situation where we now have had the essentially the legislative branch multiple times, go, hey, motherfucker, like, this war is unconstitutional. We have deemed it unconstitutional. It's been multiple times now. And they're finding all these like weird sort of legal reinventive ways to try to finagle to where it's technically 60 days is starting over now. This is a whole new operation. No, this isn't the same war. It's totally different. And that's what they're doing here by breaking these up into different operations. That's where you get Operation Epic Fury. Now we're in overseas operations. During Operation Epic Fury, the code name for the first months of the war, at least 14 U.S. troops were killed, 417 were wounded, for a total of 642 casualties since Trump launched a war with Israel on February 28th. U.S. and Israeli attacks in Iran since February 28th have killed around 3,500 Iranians, including more than 50 since the U.S. renewed strikes several weeks ago. In April, Iranian officials said nearly half of those killed were civilians, including the 120 school children killed in the U.S. bombing of the Manab Elementary School. Trump administration has consistently downplayed the casualties, with the Pentagon only admitting to more than 100 of the recent injuries after the New York Times reported it didn't disclose dozens of injuries in Jordan in the days leading up to the deadly July 17th attack. Trump has also downplayed the casualties by sharing statistics of other U.S. wars with higher casualty rates, and he claimed the 4 soldiers who had killed had said that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, as he was going to attend a dignified transfer ceremony at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. They said, and they, all of them very strongly, we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. They won't have a nuclear weapon, so we're going to honor them. It's one of the hardest things to do. For me, it's one of the hardest things to do as a president, but it has to be done, Trump told reporters. How brave of Trump. It's so hard for him. I hope he gets through this. Now, obviously, we talked about the quote the other day. I think if we're going to give this the benefit, the only way you could interpret that being an honest statement is that it's like he's saying in like a metaphorical way, in the sense that they joined the military, that they essentially signed off on whatever their superiors sent them off to do, which technically they kind of did. But I have a strong feeling that probably most of these people, if they were pulled aside and they're like, hey, we always talk about all your core values and how you'd be willing to put service before self or do whatever, you put your life on the line for this country. But, okay, let's just say theoretically, you were going to maybe have to, I don't know, put your life on the line for this specific thing. I think most of them would say, suck a fat fucking cock. At least that's what I would say. I'd say Israel can suck my butt. That's what I would say. So I don't know, just kind of crazy to say that, but whatever. I guess maybe there is a way to understand this statement in a sort of abstract, almost sort of way. We're like, okay, there's some sort of truth to that. But either way, still insane thing to say. To me, a little bit of a disgracing their memories. I mean, we have no idea what these people's beliefs were. Things are complicated. I would actually be willing to put money on it that probably at least one of the 4 people that died there probably were not particularly fans of this war. So, because that's actually funny enough. Ron Paul, one stat people bring up all the time, is like he pretty much like almost pretty much anytime he ran for anything, he like always got like the highest percentage of active duty military, because generally those people are actually surprisingly typically anti-war. But anyways, moving on, let's get into, like I kind of alluded to, some of the shenanigans when it comes to the war powers stuff. Well, we get another push. We've been talking about this a bunch, all these different pushes to do something. And then when they actually have the ability to do something, probably some leverage, they don't. So it seems to be a lot of this performative. But either way, let's see where this one is going. We got Massey joining Democrats in an attempt to sue the White House over the Iran war. So Massey is joining a group of Democrats who are attempting to sue the White House over its refusal to follow a war powers resolution that was passed by Congress and directed President Trump to end the war with Iran, Fox News Digital reported on Monday. The war powers resolution was passed by both the House and Senate in June, marking the first time Congress approved a concurrent resolution under the 1973 War Powers Act directing the termination of an unauthorized war. Massey told Fox that Trump and the U.S. War Secretary Pete Hegseth are in blatant violation of 2 sections of the War Powers Resolution of 1973. For the first time since the law was enacted, a concurrent resolution has passed in accordance with 5C of the law, but the White House has ignored it. It seems they've assumed the law is unconstitutional, but no one has ever found that to be the case, so the law remains on the books while the White House flouts it. In the 1983 case, INS v. Shadha, the Supreme Court did not opine on the 1973 War Powers Resolution. It's time for the courts to settle this, and that's what our legislation directs, Massey said. They've also violated Section 5B of the law, but rather than ignore the law, they've perpetrated a ruse. The 60-day limit on presidential military activity does not apply with respect to the Iran war, because each time they effect a temporary ceasefire, the statutory clock restarts. We believe no court would agree with this absurdity, and this should be litigated as well, he added. The legislation to enforce the War Powers Resolution was introduced by Representative Gregory Meeks of New York, a Democrat, the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and has 5 co-sponsors, 4 Democrats plus Massey. The bill would require Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, to take legal action against the administration to enforce the concurrent War Powers Resolution. The power to declare war rests unequivocally with Congress, yet Speaker Johnson and the vast majority of Republicans have allowed Trump to trample over the Constitution and wage a war that has not been authorized by Congress. Nevertheless, Democrats, together with the few Republicans who upheld their oath, successfully passed my Iran War Powers Resolution that requires the president to end his hostilities in Iran last month, Meeks said in a statement on the bill. Despite what the administration might say, I believe my War Powers Resolution is binding. It is time to settle that question in the courts. As the Speaker of the House, Johnson must bring this suit forward. If the Speaker won't defend congressional prerogatives, we must compel him to do so, which is why I've introduced this legislation to force his hand. Now, this is the sort of shit that if the Democrats coming in these midterms, almost certainly after they kind of win in a blue wave, if they are worth any sort of shits whatsoever, it's this sort of stuff they would go over. Remember we fucking impeached I say we, but they impeached Trump over the gay fucking Russiagate stuff or whatever. Now this is stuff to impeach. This is stuff to remove over. This is someone directly flouting Congress, directly disregarding them, being unconstitutional as absolute fuck. I can't think. I struggle to think of a better example of where you could actually have a legitimate, not just like, oh no, someone got their dick sucked in the Oval Office. Oh no, someone didn't give Ukraine all the weapons exactly the way we wanted to on time or whatever. No, this is, hey, someone's actually waging unconstitutional wars, like every single other one of them. But this one has been explicitly and repeatedly shown to be unconstitutional in the most absurd, overt ways over and over and over again. So, like, can we lock this one up? Like, come on. I don't know, whatever. I'm not too hopeful for that. I feel like it'll probably just be over silly shit. It probably will be some such culture gay shit or something. I don't know. They'll rehash up vaccines or J6 or something, or I don't know. It'll be something like that. But I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of hopeful something decent will happen there, but we'll see. Either way, just kind of saying, hey, here's fertile ground to buttfuck Trump for the next guys coming in. Moving on to we got a couple foreign dignitaries coming to the White House here soon, and I think these people are worthy of being looked into a little bit. We get Netanyahu coming. This is for, I believe both these are actually coming for Lindsey Graham's funeral. So it seems Lindsey Graham's funeral is actually kind of shaping up to be quite the political event, which actually might have some significant meaning. This is kind of becoming this like Iran. I believe it's they're kind of using this as like centerpiece around this like this legislation. I believe it's sanctions. Obviously, we're going to get into it here in a second for that are connecting the Iran and the Ukrainian stuff, which combining that stuff should make your butthole pucker up. If it doesn't, I don't know what to tell you. But anything combining these two wars is of concern. But we've got Netanyahu coming. He's going to be here. He left yesterday, so I assume he's probably already in the States. So in remarks before boarding his plane, Netanyahu noted it would mark his 8th meeting with Trump since the U.S. president returned to office in January 2025. So I'm on my way to Washington for a meeting with our friend Trump. This is my 8th meeting with him since he was elected president for the second term, more than any other international leader. This is a great privilege, but it's also a great responsibility, Netanyahu said. The Israeli leader said they would first and foremost discuss Iran. Surprise, surprise. According to Israeli media, he is expected to present Trump with intelligence that claims Iran is pursuing nuclear weapons. Whoa, that's a new one. He's never done that. Likely an effort to get the U.S. to restart its airstrikes against Iran and further escalate the war. I bet you they're like 2 weeks away from getting a nuke or something. The last time Netanyahu was in Washington was February 11th, 17 days before the U.S. and Israel launched the war against Iran. So obviously it's always concerning when Netanyahu swings by. According to a report from the New York Times, Netanyahu provided Trump with an intelligence briefing at the time to sell the idea of attacking the Islamic Republic. The report said Netanyahu made a series of predictions about the war that proved to be wrong, including the idea that Iran was ripe for regime change, that its ballistic missile program could be destroyed within weeks, and that it would be too weak to close the Strait of Hormuz. In his remarks on Monday, Netanyahu praised Lindsey Graham, who is known for his staunch support of Israel and obsessive drive to bring the U.S. into war with Iran. I'm also embarking on another mission to pay final respects to our friend, a true friend of mine of the State of Israel, Lindsey Graham, one of the greatest friends the State of Israel has ever known, Netanyahu said. And we also got Zelensky coming over to visit with old Donnie. So now all 100 members of the U.S. Senate have been invited to a meeting with Vladimir Zelensky on Tuesday evening, who will also be here for the funeral of Lindsey Graham. Zelensky's meetings with U.S. senators will be around at the same time the Senate is expected to vote on a Russian sanctions bill that the U.S. lawmakers have said was put forward to honor Graham, who died on July 11th after returning home to a trip to Ukraine, where he met with Zelensky and announced the White House had agreed to move forward on more Russian sanctions. The legislation would impose sanctions on Russian officials and companies and would also give Trump the power to impose 100% tariffs on countries that pursue Russian energy with carve-outs for U.S. NATO allies. The initial bill that Graham was pushing last year would have required 500% tariffs. Trump had called on the Senate to add Iran sanctions to the bill. So this is what I was talking about right here. So this bill, it started as a Russia thing. It still technically is. But now they're calling to make this like a joint Iran-Russia thing because, according to Trump, it's what Lindsey would have wanted, and Senate leaders said they would do so. But it's unclear if the Iran measures will be included in the bill that will be voted on during Zelensky's visit. Zelensky will also hold talks with Trump at the White House, a meeting that comes as Ukraine has continued launching long-range drone attacks inside Russia. that are supported by U.S. intelligence. On Saturday, a Ukrainian drone struck an Iranian commercial ship in the Caspian Sea, marking an escalation between Kiev and Tehran. Since Trump held a contentious Oval meeting with Zelensky in February of last year, relations between the two leaders have improved, and at the recent NATO summit in Ankara, Trump praised Zelensky and said he backed Ukraine's drone attacks in Russia, which have killed an increasing number of civilians. Trump also said that he would grant Ukraine a license to produce Patriot missile interceptors, though it could take years for the production to start. Also, while we're in this vein of discussion, I do want to point out, I didn't really find it important enough to bring it to like bringing up a clip or another slide or whatever, because fuck Laura Loomer, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out. I'm going to, how do I say this? Just keep an eye out. I really expect going forward here, think of that language I just talked about a moment ago, where Trump, was saying like, oh, we're going to add Iran sanctions and this is going to Russia sanctions is because what Lindsay would have wanted. God, what was I totally lost my fucking train of thought there. What I was getting at is the idea of that they're going to pivot somewhat, because a lot of people may recall, if you wind the clock a little bit, Trump came in what was like January-ish. It was all this talk, on the campaign, kind of alluding to we're going to dial things back in Russia. We hate seeing people die, yada, yada, yada. Very much like, we're going to end this war over in Russia. Very much MAGA, the whole idea of the Trump movement, MAGA, whatever you call it, very anti-Ukraine-Russia war. They do not want this shit. And so it's very much sold this idea. It's heavily implied, well, Trump's going to get him out of there. I think he even said some dumb shit like in the first 24 or 40 hours or something like that. That has not been the case. It's very much been just kind of, the stalemate sort of situation the whole way through, just kind of dragging on. There's been lots of stuff as of recently, things getting worse, getting more dystopian, kind of, escalating in a kind of freaky way. But anyways, and then what I'm getting at is with this Loomer thing that I mentioned is recently Loomer just went and had an interview with Zelensky. There's been also just kind of this it seems like certain characters are kind of shifting somewhat. Loomer being one of them. I think she was kind of, in that similar sort of like tepid place when it comes to the Ukraine-Russia thing. Seems now she's kind of pivoting, becoming more pro-Ukraine. So seemingly going back to the previous, status quo prior to Trump effectively pushing this stuff now. So just kind of, I guess, pointing out the pivot of sorts in here. This kind of like idea of like, we're going to stop it. Then it kind of comes into like, well, we'll find a way to do something or other. And it kind of goes on life support / stalemate. And now here we are in likely easing into full on support and likely even merging wars. So obviously very fucking concerning. Another war, if you want to call it that a lot of people have kind of forgotten with all of this craziness going on, is the war in Central America and South America, the cartel war, the war on drugs, the narco-terrorists, the kind of the random that we cover, probably every other week or so now. Random boat gets blown up over in the Caribbean or the Pacific or someplace in the fucking ocean, and herder narco-terrorists is what somebody in the Department of War tells us, and we're supposed to go, okay, cool. I guess it's okay. Here's murdering people randomly on the high seas because they may be selling drugs, and I'll totally just trust you, bro. That's cool. But the whole idea here is like, hey, we're working on, these are narco-terrorists. They're spreading drugs all over the place. These drugs are killing people. Now it's been thoroughly disputed because it was always like kind of implied, always like, well, fentanyl is so bad, because fentanyl is really bad. But when you look into this whole, South America, Central America, like none of these people are really have anything to do with it. So if you are to make any sort of argument for like what sort of drug trade you're actually affecting here, would be cocaine. And so then the argument then became from the drug warriors or the narco terrorists, go-rafters is, they're selling cocaine, and cocaine people put fentanyl in, which, I mean, this is such strained logic already, but either way, let's just accept, okay, sure, whatever the fuck. We'll accept somehow this is okay to do, and somehow this is legit. You want to stop cocaine, and that's going to somehow help with the fentanyl problem, whatever. Okay, getting a little murky here, but obviously the assumption here is like, okay, so all of this stuff should somehow actually curb the cocaine trade. Well, it hasn't. There's been 67 boat strikes, 221 dead, and the cocaine hasn't slowed. Officials report. This is from the Washington Post over here. But yeah, we have essentially Pentagon and DEA analysts saying otherwise. So we're getting reports coming in from the military saying otherwise, that they're completely full of shit. I mean, we've covered in this show extensively some of the crazy fucking stats Trump was throwing out, you know, how many lives have been saved as a result of all these murders in the high seas, and not looking like it's making a bit of a fucking difference. So let's read, I guess, a couple paragraphs of this. I'm not going to read the whole piece. The Trump administration's deadly military strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats have not reduced the amount of cocaine entering the United States, but they're prompting criminal organizations to develop new strategies and tactics and undermining traditional investigative methods, according to a previously unreported assessment of the DEA. A closed-door congressional briefing and interviews occurred in former U.S. and foreign officials. In a recent assessment reviewed by the Washington Post, DEA analysts found the strikes had failed to affect the supply or price of cocaine in the United States and had led traffickers to diversify beyond go-fast boats and to avoid international waters. Which, funny enough, if it did even affect the price, I guess it would just bring it up a little bit. Probably wouldn't make that big of a difference. Opting instead for larger boats and hemming close to coastlines where U.S. forces are less likely to open fire. In a closed-door briefing last month, Pentagon officials told lawmakers the strikes in international waters off South and Central America have not reduced its purity. So, seeming like every which way is not making things any better, and it's actually making these smugglers a whole lot more effective, it sounds like. But all right, let's move on to what our greatest ally is doing to all of its neighbors. We got Gaza. Over in Gaza, they've killed 3 Palestinians on Monday, unfortunately, as the IDF continues its relentless attacks across the Palestinian territory in violation of the U.S.-backed ceasefire deal. The Palestinian news agency Wafa reported that Mohammed Islim died of wounds he sustained in an Israeli strike on Dar al-Balah, central Gaza, early Monday evening. They also report an Israeli drone strike in Gaza killed 1 Palestinian, so we got a drone strike as well, and another was killed by an attack south of Dar al-Balah. 3 Palestinian fishermen were also wounded by an Israeli drone while they're working at sea off the coast of Gaza. This brings the total up to 1,203 Palestinians that have died since the ceasefire went into effect in October. So quite the ceasefire here. And then let's check in on Lebanon, what's going on over there. Not seeing any deaths, so that's a positive development. Unfortunately, they're completely destroying everything. So UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turks Baru, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun declared the country remains committed to the framework deal they reached with Israel in recent weeks, but warned the ongoing Israeli attacks may hinder their ability to meet goals. Aoun criticized Israel for its demolition of civilian homes and for its attacks on religious and World Heritage sites, and Prime Minister Nawaf Salam vowed to cooperate with Turk's investigation into Israeli war crimes. Meanwhile, artillery and drone strikes continue to pound Lebanon's south, with heavy attacks reported on the village of Markaba in the Mar Jayoun district. The attacks set fires across the area, including both the outskirts of Markaba and Talouseh. Mar Jayoun has been the main target for the past several days, but renewed strikes in the area around the town of Sheba are also being reported now, as well as Ali al-Tahar in the Nabatea district. Turk called for an end to Israeli occupation as well as destruction of private homes. He added the deliberate demolition of homes raises huge flags about compliance with international humanitarian law. Netanyahu reiterated that he intends to reject any U.S. or other calls to withdraw from Lebanon or from the other countries that they presently occupy militarily. Netanyahu makes these comments every day or two, but this one is seen as particularly significant coming ahead of a planned trip to Washington to meet with Trump. And finishing off our foreign policy, give you a little bit of update of what's going on over in Syria. Things still trickling up, it seems. So one day after Israeli drones dropped leaflets over villages in the Yarmouk Basin, admonishing Syrians against trying to block roads used by the invading Israeli military, troops attacked the residential area of Al-Mariya. The reports have Maria taking extensive fire targeting homes, though incredibly no civilian casualties have been confirmed in the shooting incident. So to recap, I remember this, we'd talked about this, or maybe I'd read it myself and didn't cover it with you guys, But they have been blocking these roads with rocks. Some of these locals, and it looks like in almost in kind of in response, it seems, from the Israeli military, they essentially unloaded on them. Luckily, as I just said a minute ago, seems like no casualties. During the shooting, the Israeli troops were also reported to be advancing the nearby village of Jamla. Maria is one of several villages that aim to limit Israeli forces advancing to them by placing stones along the roadways to block military vehicles. Troops had launched similar attacks on Maria over the stones earlier this month, though it is not clear further stones were placed before today's attack. Israeli forces have taken a growing interest in their Yarmouk River basin in recent weeks, and villages like Maria and Jamla have found themselves in the crosshairs. Maria and Jamla are south of the UNDOF line in Dara Governorate. Maria, in particular, is very close to the Jordan border. In addition to the Dara operations, Israeli forces were also active in the northern part of Syria's Quneitra Governorate, with military vehicles reportedly raiding the village of Samdaniya on Sunday, detaining a civilian before departing. His fate remains uncertain. Israeli forces also fired artillery shells at farmland in the same part of Quneitra Governorate near Taranja village. No casualties reported in those strikes earlier, so I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing casualties here soon in Syria. It's kind of surprising we haven't, with as much belligerence is occurring in that region, but hopefully it stays with no deaths. But let's check in the chat, check in you beautiful people. Just a little reminder, hit that like button as you're popping in here, and if you haven't already, help the homie, like, retweet, whatever the given thing is on whatever platform you're watching. Help a brother out. With that, let's check the chat. Here's from Tower Gang MPC. Says, any prospects on merch, Jose? Would love to buy some No Way Jose drip. I haven't made any moves. I mean, if I remember, I can try to ask Jacob again. I know Jacob had said at one point he was working on some sort of merch of stuff, and he was talking about, I think, hosting my merch, maybe even Austin's merch as well. I forget. Maybe Already Dead merch as well. Because I'm not one who's particularly myself wanting to really take the effort of get into the merch game. Now, usually how this works for most content creators, is my understanding, is like you'll usually, if they don't handle it themselves, they'll have someone else handle it, and they'll take like a percentage essentially off their name. You know, like essentially it would be like, well, one of you guys, if you want to get No Way Jose merch, I get 10 or 20% or whatever because it's No Way Jose. I don't give a fuck. I think IP is fake and gay. I mean, not necessarily as an IP thing. That's just, I guess, maybe to some degree, is just kind of like, hey, you're letting me do that. And I guess the idea would be like, I would promote it. I'd be like, this is official No Way Jose merch or whatever. Either way, though, like if there is someone out there who does, as I've offered this before, if you want to beat Jacob to the punch or whatever, I have zero problem with that. I mean, I guess if Jacob then later actually makes a merch store, I probably would, because he is kind of my dude, and it would be better to have everything like a central spot. I'd probably promote it. But for now, if you beat him to the punch, if you want to, the designs are all out there. If you want to take those designs, if you want to make stuff, I don't give a fuck. I will promote it. If one of you guys want to do it, I don't care about getting a cut. I do like merch being out there, but it's too much of a hassle to really hand it yourself. There's not really that much money you make off of merch. It's more about spreading the word of the show. I would like to have merch, but I just don't care enough to do it myself. So if there's anybody out there who wants to do merch, hit me up. I will gladly promote it. So, but anyways, yeah, no merch right now. So I don't really have a way to do merch. Sorry. I definitely do need to work on that though. What else we got? We got Bobo dropping a big old tower in the chat. All right, geez, a lot in here. Good morning, Marnamak. Good morning. It says good morning to all you sexy dumpers. What else we got? Man, a lot of chit chat in the chat today. Good morning, Cubertamo. Good morning. You guys talk about getting Conor McGregor elected. That's just nuts. Good morning, Che Coho. Good morning. What did you miss? I missed some of the foreign policy. I missed the icebreakers. So I talked about AOC's new accent, which I don't even think was really that bad. I think people making a big deal out of it. Talk about Trump going after Taco Bell lettuce. But yeah, we're getting ready to get into the main show here in a second, so you're here just in time. You're good. What else we got? Good morning, Afrez. Good morning. Fishing after work. Nice to catch a live. Yeah, I remember you're across the pond. Different time over there. Good morning, Evan Griffin. Good morning. Qbert says, I understand calling me sexy, maybe even bug fights, but not so much. Or Tom33, even aggressively agreeing. But I know you're not saying that ugly ass Jose is sexy. Ain't no fucking way. Hell yeah. All right, let's get into our first titled segment of the day. Let's get into Agent Epstein. What's going on there? To kind of start off, we have a little bit of news on the Virginia Giuffre and her credibility front. Her dad, who has been accused for years of, essentially being the molester of Virginia, which totally tracks for the sort of lives that these women tend to have that, end up in these sort of rings. So it's believable. But he's pushing back now. We got some legal action here. So Virginia Giuffre's father, Sky Roberts, has filed a defamation suit against Penguin Random House and writer Amy Wallace over claims in Giuffre's posthumously published memoir, Nobody's Girl. Roberts says the book falsely accuses him of abusing his daughter as a child and that he denied the allegations before publication. Which is a weird situation here. Like, what do you do? Because, like, for one, I don't really know whether this guy really did molest her or not. Also, Virginia Giuffre's now dead. Also, there's like a third person this is a third person who they're suing this person for defamation, Amy Wallace, and all that Amy Wallace, I believe, is just essentially who wrote the things that Giuffre claimed. So, a little bit weird to give that person defamation suit. I mean, I guess you are sort of defaming them, but all that she is really doing is recording someone else's claims. So I don't know. This seems bizarre. Obviously, I'm very much against, even if it was like a legit defamation thing, I would not be for it. I'm very much 1A, and that way I think the defamation suits are retarded. But even by the logic of defamation, this is a little bit strained for me. But either way, here it is. Let's look at this one. This is a United States District Court, Middle District of Florida. So this is over in Cala. Sky Roberts, that's his name. The name like Sky is a dude. I think he's already guilty. Versus Penguin Random House, Alfred A. Knopf, a Delaware limited liability company, and Amy Wallace. It says plaintiff Sky Roberts sues defendants Penguin Random House, LLC, Random House, a Delaware limited liability company, and Amy Wallace, a citizen of California, and alleges as follows. It says nature of action. This is an action for damages for defamation arising for defendant's publication of Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice by Virginia Roberts Giuffre. The memoir, published by Alfred A. Knopf, an imprint of defendant Random House, with a collaborator's note by defendant A. Wallace. A. Wallace's self-anointed title of collaborator is a marketing grift, and then it kind of drones off. So okay, we got a legal case starting there. Be interested to see where this goes. Here's Ken adding a little bit more to this. He says Giuffre's father also released a polygraph report which says he exhibited no deception when he denied molesting his daughter. Give this a retweet for those who want to check it out on the timeline. But yeah, here you go. Basic case information. It shows Sky William Roberts, type of examination, civil matter, requesting party, Daniel Foodman, Esquire. Case background: this matter arises as a referral from the Foodman firm, PA, and the Alderman law firm. The central figure in this case is Sky Roberts, who is the father of Virginia Roberts Giuffre. Miss Giuffre is a survivor of sexual assault and was one of the key victims in the criminal case brought against the late convicted felon Jeffrey Epstein. As an adult, Miss Roberts Giuffre authored and published a memoir entitled Nobody's Girl, which chronicles her experiences of sexual abuse from childhood into adulthood. Within this publication, specifically in approximately Chapter 4, Miss Giuffre details allegations of sexual abuse by her father, Sky Roberts. Mr. Roberts has publicly denied these allegations. In light of these conflicting accounts, the instant evaluation has been commissioned to assess the credibility of Mr. Roberts' statements and to examine the veracity and integrity of his assertions regarding the matters described. Issues to be addressed. During the course of the psychophysiological evaluation, the primary issues under examination concern whether Mr. Sky Roberts engaged in sexual intercourse with his daughter, Mrs. Virginia Roberts Giuffre, and whether he ever engaged in any form of inappropriate or sexual suggestive physical contact with her. These inquiries were conducted as part of a broader assessment aimed at evaluating the credibility of Mr. Roberts' public denials of the allegations as detailed in Mrs. Giuffre's published account. And then it shows the results and conclusion here. It says no deception indicated. And it says examiner's professional opinion because it shows numerical scores, not applicable. Chart analysis summary, not applicable. It says after a careful analysis of the subject's polygraph test, it is the opinion of the examiner that there were no consistent psychophysiological responses, usually indicative of deception to the relevant questions. It is therefore the opinion of the examiner that no deception was indicated during the examination. This was done by Jordan Lovelace. This was February 8th, 2026. So like 5 months ago, this was done. Now, I don't really trust these things too much. I'm currently reading right now, what is this called? A Lie Too Big to Fail, I believe. The RFK book, Lisa Pease's book. She gave it to me whenever I did my series with her forever ago. Finally getting around to reading it. And there's one person in there, I believe it was Martinez, if I'm remembering correctly. But either way, one of the guys, there's this polygraph guy who did all sorts of polygraphs in there, and were essentially, seemingly, one would think it's almost, I guess, how do I say this? It gives the appearance that perhaps things were manipulated. And it really, when you get into the weeds of the RFK thing, especially when you get into like, Sandra Serrano, the person who saw the person in the polka dot dress, you really start to realize the degree to which polygraphs can be manipulated in all sorts of different ways. So I do think there probably is some level of truth to the idea of it, but there's so many different factors that come into play. The idea of that using this for in any way, especially legally, is seems to be a bit much, especially when there's a lot of things on the line, especially something like this. So well, obviously with the Serrano example I'm thinking of with the RFK thing, I believe they were trying to get her to make her unreliable in her claims to seeing someone in the polka dot dress and some other things that she had seen. So they were trying to make her seem unreliable and seem like what things she had said had changed and certain things were deceptive. And one of the tricks they used there was they just like completely repeat, did it over and over and over and over and over again to aggravate her, to get to get stress in these answers and to essentially be able to manipulate deception. So there's all sorts of different tricks of the trade for anyone who wants to manipulate one of these. So I always find it ridiculous people act like these really mean much of anything, really. Especially in regards to crazy, spooky things like Epstein or other such stuff like that, like it's or like the RFK assassination. But either way, that's in there, so I'll be interested to see where this goes. But more and kind of in the realm of Virginia Giuffre, here's I found this Epstein file. This is back and forth between Alan Dershowitz and David Boies. So here it is. I'll just show you so it's Alan Dershowitz and David Boies. The subject possible statement. It says, we should be aiming at a short, simple statement such as, the events at issue occurred approximately 15 years ago when I was a teenager. Although I believe then and continue to believe that the AD was a person with whom I had sex, probably me and Alan Dershowitz, recent developments raise the possibility this may be a case of mistaken identification. Alternative, that it may have been someone else, that someone mistakenly told me it was him. We should be able to come up with a mutually acceptable statement. It would be acceptable if the statement came from you rather than her if she prefers. So that's Alan Dershowitz. So I'll may have picked up from the context there what we were talking about. A lot of people may remember in the story of Virginia Giuffre, one thing that comes up often, especially from like the Michael Tracys of the world, that she was a fantabulous. She lied about certain things. And this is the one that people always end up pointing to is the Alan Dershowitz claim. I believe in one of the many different legal ordeals that she had, she, for some reason, was forced to make some concession that perhaps the person that she thought was Alan Dershowitz, there's an outside possibility that maybe she could have misidentified him or something like that. Like essentially providing the outside possibility, like, well, maybe he really did look like him, but like I was wrong. Like, which is really the most weakest of, I don't know, whatever. People point this as if it's like a big deal. This kind of really carries away to her credibility. Don't get me wrong. I'm open to the idea that her credibility is at fault, but I just find this to be, especially when you think about the stakes at play here. You talk about the sort of intrigue that Epstein was playing around with, sort of characters that Alan Dershowitz caters to. You're like, well, I can totally get why someone who's probably, in her early 20s this time, going against immensely powerful people. Yeah, okay, whatever. Maybe this one I got to take an L. Maybe this one I got to say, well, maybe it wasn't you there, Alan. Whatever. Like, I don't know the specifics. She's not with us anymore. A lot of people think she was, hell, she was alluding to like someone coming after her, if I'm recalling correctly. So I don't really think it's outside the realm of possibility. But either way, what we're looking at here, as Amber Woods points out, to even lay it out even more, even better here, says this shows a powerful attorney, Virginia Giuffre, accused of sexual assault, coordinating directly with her attorney at the time, an attorney who had previously been Jeffrey Epstein's law partner and whom another survivor says groomed her and sexually assaulted her. Each of these allegations deserves independent investigation. So even then, furthermore, this one piece people always point to is Virginia Giuffre being a liar, even has this further context. We literally have examples of essentially Dershowitz setting this up with someone who was previously Epstein's law partner. Seems significant to me. So seems like the fix was in. So either way, moving on, kind of getting more to where we're getting at into the Agent Epstein stuff. Here's something from Seth Harp. He's the guy who wrote that Fort Bragg cartel book, kind of all the spooky stuff that all the spec ops guys do over there. But I need to check that book. I haven't read it yet, but he put out a tweet that said, the very first time Jeffrey Epstein's name ever appeared in print in November 1992, the writer repeatedly called him a spy and specifically referenced his rumored connections to the CIA and Mossad. So I guess more getting to, obviously we started with Virginia Giuffre's, her claims kind of coming into question, like, oh, she lied. Seems like a kind of post-mortem, like, okay, now let's go after this, let's reconstruct history now. But keep in mind the stakes that were going on there. People will point to like, oh, like as we just did a second ago, she admitted she lied in court about the Alan Dershowitz claim or whatever. And you're like, well, the subtext of all of this is we have this Alan Dershowitz guy was working for Epstein. Who's this Epstein guy? He's connected to all these other people. When he first came on the scene, he's being referred to as a spy with connections to CIA and Mossad. Well, it kind of, you start to fill in the blanks a little bit here. And this becomes a little bit more than just, this young lady is just making up shit. Makes you think a little bit more. But let's look at this piece. So this is the mystery of Ghislaine Maxwell's secret love. Reveal the unlikely romance between a business spy and the crooked financier's favorite daughter. This is in November 15th, 1992 by Michael Robotham. So I'm not going to read this all. It's a little bit longer, but we'll read a few. It says a few paragraphs here. It says, in public relations term, it was an unmitigated disaster. Ghislaine Maxwell, the youngest and most pulchritudinous, well, I've never seen that word ever, of the disgraced tycoon's children, was photographed boarding Concorde to return to her adopted city, New York. The bankers cheated by her father and pensioners left destitute as a result of Robert Maxwell's wickedness were incandescent with anger. A one-way trip on Concorde cost more than 2,000 euros, an awful lot of money for a young woman reported to be living on a meager 80,000 euro trust set up by her father. But her departure for New York is notable for a very different reason. Unnoticed by almost everybody traveling with her was a graying, plumpish, middle-aged American businessman who managed to avoid the photographers. It is to this man that 30-year-old Ghislaine has turned to ease the heartache of her father's shame. His name is Jeffrey Epstein, a shadowy, almost maverick New York property developer. They put that in quotes, too. Who, for over a year, has helped Ghislaine become a coveted fixture on the Manhattan social scene. During the last year, say friends, she has fallen in love with him and the couple are inseparable. Despite the dubious fame of having been nominated as Cosmopolitan magazine's Bachelor of the Month, Epstein walked into her life at a time when she was desperately lonely. Even before her father died a year ago, Ghislaine had split from her great love, Count Gianfranco Cicogna, a dashing, charming member of the Siga Hotels clan. Cicogna was the man who molded the Ghislaine we now see. He told her where to get her hair cut and what to wear. Their affair lasted for 4 years and finished in 1990. His new girlfriend is TV AM weather girl Tanya Breyer. On the rebound, Ghislaine had no permanent boyfriend, and when her father died, she went into a deeper malaise. But by Epstein's side, Ghislaine is building respectability in New York, which would be impossible in London, where the wounds created by her father cut deepest. let's look at a couple of these. Let's go with a couple of these. So let's look at a couple little excerpts from here. So we see here, it says, and yet, like much associated with the Maxwell clan, little is known about Mr. Epstein. One outrageous story links him to the CIA and Mossad. Another that Epstein was a concert pianist. Yet another that he was a math teacher in an exclusive girls' school. The most intriguing rumor is he was a corporate spy hired by big businesses to uncover money that had been embezzled. Then going on, who else do we have here? So his friends say Epstein's social rise has been accompanied by remorseless attraction to well-connected, rich, and beautiful women. One of his first notable dates was Nikki Haskell, a former TV talk show hostess who met him 6 years ago. Haskell was giving some of the most prominent parties in New York, and Epstein, who had lived close by, became a regular guest. Jeffrey didn't talk about his past, although he claimed to have been a concert pianist. She said last week she experienced Epstein's love of intrigue. He told me he was a spy hired by corporations to find major amounts of money which have been embezzled. And let me see if there's anything more worthwhile digging in this last page. We got here, it says he once lived in a building which also housed socialite and fashion guru Mary McFadden and several children of the Walkmeister family, part of New York's tightly knit circle of Jewish philanthropists. According to a close friend, Epstein is now the right-hand man of Leslie Wexner, the founder of the Limited Corporation, a giant retailing chain. Ghislaine's New York friends are very supportive of her relationship with Epstein, whom they see as a gentle father figure. So this is how they were characterizing Epstein way back then, just basically from the jump as a spy. Although technically this isn't the first one. Someone corrected him here. It says not to be too pedantic, but he had been mentioned in print before. As that article alludes to, he was Cosmopolitan's Bachelor of the Month in July 1980. So in 1980, he got Bachelor of the Month. And then in 1992 was the next bit where he showed up in there as an actual full-length article, as kind of featuring him as the boyfriend of Ghislaine Maxwell with these mysterious background, alluding to I think he might be a spy. Here is the little bit here for the Bachelor of the Month. It was literally just kind of like a little thing here. It says Bachelor of the Month, financial strategist Jeffrey Epstein talks only to people who make over $1 million a year. If you're a cute Texas girl, write this New York dynamo at 55 Water Street, 49th floor, New York City, 10041. So kind of like one of those little ad thingies they have, these little Bachelor of the Months type thing. So anyways, that's Cosmo Tells All section in the 80s. But moving on, let's get more into his spy world. I've developed a newfound appreciation for parapower mapping. Holy fucking shitballs. I don't recall ever actually looking into one of his actual written pieces. We've just mostly covered some of his tweets and stuff like that. But I figure we're going to cover the introductory portion of this piece of his called The Epstein Network Subversion in Cuba, Colombia, and Pink Tide, South America. Very much going into how Ghislaine and Epstein and this general network, essentially created their little Epstein empire, or little Epstein espionage empire in the region. So kind of once more emphasizing the sort of power these people have and what they created, and I think really kind of highlighting where things are going to over currently in the with a lot of the expansionist stuff going on there. But either way, I'll just to give you what I mean when I say newfound respect. Look at this fucking thing, and I don't know what kind of production schedule Parapower Mapping's working with. But I see like fairly regularly, I think I see like a new one, but I'm going pretty slow through. This is, if you're watching, you can see me going through this whole article. This thing is a fucking behemoth. So I will give this a retweet so you guys can, if you guys want to go give the full piece a read. We may even, I think we may come back to this and hash through some of these little segments for other segments in our show. I think I might want to do one later on on Epstein and his connection to drug smuggling, which is in this, but this thing is fucking huge. So this guy must just be living, sustaining his life off of Adderall at this point. But either way, bravo, holy fucking shit. Big ups to him for that one. But either way, we'll dig a little bit into this, and this can kind of serve as a teaser for you guys to go check this out. I think you should. But let's get into this piece. It says Trump and anti-Castro Cuban Secretary of State Marco Rubio's increasingly belligerent threats and imperialist provocations towards Cuba under the so-called Don Roe Doctrine finally coerced Cuban lawmakers into passing watershed into passing watershed liberalizing reforms after decades of brutal sanctions. Time will tell whether the Diaz-Canel government's decision to pursue a Cuban economic model with Chinese and arguably semi-Batistite characteristics will keep the American dogs of war leashed, or whether Delta Force will smell blood in the water and mount a Bay of Pigs 2.0 to abduct Diaz-Canel and Raul Castro a la Maduro and apply the fatal finisher of the Cuban Revolution. Either way, these breaking privatization and marketization reforms under pressure are the latest development in the long Cold War against Cuba, a covert continuum stretching from the final days of the Batista regime through to the present. At the same time, we find that the Epstein class are about to install an Israel-loving comprador in Casa Narino as Colombian commander-in-chief, a defense attorney for narco-paramilitants and sexual predators who described Cuba as the head of the snake of Latin American communism and called for its absorption as a territory of the United States so that reconstruction can begin in earnest. Buttering up the Israel lobby further, he reportedly promised to open an embassy in Jerusalem with his first act. Meanwhile, a backbroken Venezuelan government, now led by Delcy Rodriguez, who pursued a strategy of deference and appeasement toward Trump and the American security state, was devastatingly shaken to its very core by two 7.0 magnitude earthquakes in the last 24 hours. The cataclysmic extent of the infrastructural damage and collapsed buildings are a sad reminder of the knock-on effects of embargo and sanction, as brain drain and prohibitive construction material prices contributed to fewer quake-proof buildings. Hundreds crushed, thousands injured, and hundreds more remain trapped under the rubble of the worst quakes to strike North Venezuela in generations. Trump has tasked Sost Hegseth to mobilize the aptly named Department of War to save lives and rapidly deliver aid in conjunction with the State Department. One would be forgiven for wondering if the disaster and humanitarian deployment will serve as pretext for even further consolidations of Don Roe Doctrine control over Latin America and the Caribbean. A man much wiser than I once said the same about the 5,000 American troops the Obama-Clinton State Department deployed to Haiti following that disaster. They are occupying Haiti undercover. And I believe he's saying it was Hugo Chavez that said this. That Chavez speculated the earthquake in Haiti was caused by an American tectonic weapon or HARP test that may be more apocryphal than genuine, but even if the quake wasn't assisted by any thumpers, one would be forgiven for finding the timing suspicious, as it arguably couldn't have been more providential for the Epstein class, with Chavismo already weakened. Were Jeffrey Epstein still alive / not under Mossad witness protection today, you could bet your bottom dollar that he would look to exploit the Venezuelan quakes to rehabilitate his tarnished image and potentially traffic vulnerable displaced children in much the same way he did in the aftermath of the seismic rumbling that tore Haiti asunder in 2010, a half-year-ish after Epstein's reintroduction to society. Per the Miami Herald, Epstein reportedly gave $25,000 to a Haitian charity in exchange for favorable coverage to repair his image. He lent one of his private jets for aid deliveries and also floated a meeting with the Haitian president Michel Martelly in Port-au-Prince. It's unclear if he ever entered the country. One shudders at the notion of what might have occurred if he did. Already anecdotal accounts of Venezuelan children having their names changed and spirited away by humanitarian snakes in the grass have emerged, conjuring the nightmarish New Life Children's Refuge case wherein Laura Silsby and 9 other Idahoan Baptist missionaries attempted to bus 33 children across the border to the Dominican Republic without documentation or authorization. Their destination, a DR hotel that they claimed would be renovated into an orphanage. Curiously enough, Silsby and another detainee named James Hammonds had worked at Hewlett-Packard together and founded an internet company called Personal Shopper. Some of the detainees were represented by a Dominican attorney imposter who later acknowledged he was under sex trafficking investigation in El Salvador and was ultimately extradited to the U.S. to spend 37 months in prison. Doesn't exactly instill trust in the philanthropic nature of their kidnappings. Anyways, enough on that. In light of these developments across Latin America, I decided to dig into the tangled history of Jeffrey Epstein's ties to the Caribbean isle that was once Meyer Lansky's personal casino, Israel in the tropics. While in the research process, I felt a tractor beam pulling me further afield and realized it's necessary to contend with his endeavors in other Latin American countries if I'm to attempt to a halfway through handling. This is due to the correlative interplay between the domestic conditions and political cycles in places like Colombia and Venezuela and the state of the Cuban economy, which inform each other in subtle, inextricable ways. Whether as trade partners, military allies, or a source of subsidized oil, communist Cuba and Chavistas Venezuela's fates have been intertwined. That practically goes without saying. Despite a less clear-cut relationship that's run the gamut from diplomatic sparring to bilateral economic and scientific cooperation to Cuba arming and training the National Liberation Army and M19, much to the Colombian government's chagrin, and then to Cuba playing host to peace summits between the state and FARC in turn, a Colombia wrests back from the Bolivarian democratic socialist tendency and placed under far-right proxy control once again is a strategic imperative for the Amerizarialis. God, that does not roll off the tongue. If one of the end goals of this Operation Condor 2.0 is to destroy the Communist Party of Cuba for good. I've taken upon myself to peruse the majority of the 5K or so hits for Cuba, Colombia, and Venezuela in the DOJ searchable database, as well as results from sundry targeted queries. What I found was both startling and par for the course. In Cuba's case, I was slightly taken aback by the extent of Epstein's activities in the socialist state, indicative of the sheer global reach of the nexus, yet mostly unfazed to discover his pursuits involved trafficking underage girls and endeavoring to pry the country open to roundabout Amerizarian influence and investment via proxies in the Middle East like the United Arab Emirates. This article is a speed run of the Epstein network's infiltrations and subversions in post-Soviet era Cuba and Colombia, titled The Israel of Latin America by Chavez, due to its client-patron relationship with El Gran Satan and terroristic disregard for sovereignty. Along the way, we examine how Epstein and friends' activities in the region contribute to the crises Cuban and Venezuela's socialism and Colombia's nascent progressivism is now facing. Due to the touch-and-go nature of the present developments and the speed with which imperialistic contradictions are sharpening as the Epstein class consolidate their shield of the America's narco regime, I've prepared this somewhat hurriedly, so there's a strong chance this is material I will revisit, revise, or expand upon in the second installment. In which case, keep a gracious eye out and perhaps reserve your more cutting critiques until this work flowers into its final form if you're so generous. Over the span of this research piece, we will unpack whispers of a Robert Maxwell-operated grooming ring that ensnared Cuban girls into child prostitution and the Epstein mentor's boastful hot air belching that his stogies were compliments of Castro at dinner parties, coupled with a much more substantial evidence that legendary Massadist and Lachem chief Rafi Aitan got a toehold on the island via an agricultural and development corporation that moonlighted as a blatant telecom surveillance and Israeli intel front in the early 90s, prefiguring Epstein's own movement into the once hermetically sealed economy, which wasn't far behind. This Cuban prologue surrounding Epstein's possible handlers feed into discussion of the prominent role Aitan played as architect of the political genocide of the revolutionary armed forces of Colombia in the late 1980s, which set the stage for his business endeavors in Cuba and foreshadowed Epstein's appearances on the fringes of Plan Colombia, a security coordination agreement between the U.S. and Colombia that saw renewed violence against the Colombian left under bullshit war of drugs pretext. We introduce a Cuban connection case in Canard and practice run of the attempt to shitcoat the Sandinistas during Iran-Contra, on this occasion framing the revolutionary Cuban government as drug smugglers with the help of a Colombian narco DA informant, while I extol that the real connection to watch out for is the Colombia-Cuba connection, the secret shortcut to the longest-lasting self-identified communist government in the Americas that mere Israeli agents like Epstein and Aitan tried to use as an infiltration entry point. We illustrate how the present crisis that Colombian progressivism is facing under clouds of foreign electoral interference suspicion and an insurgent campaign by a Trumpian grifter in the Bukele and Noboa mold with ironclad links to the ultra-rightist AUC paramilitary is deeply colored by Aitan and Epstein's activities in the country. We explore how the Israelis armed and trained the narco paramilitants in Israel and Colombia under Eitan's direction, and they in turn effect his anti-communist pogroms by assassinating thousands of communist and socialist politicians, exhibiting how the present Colombian democratic socialist leadership was coalesced from the survivors. We furnish you with some choice synchronicities and anecdotes that place Epstein and Maxwell at a Colombian Air Force base during the implementation of the Plan Colombia, in a later tale wherein Ghislaine and former President Andre Pastrana nearly have their helicopter shot down over the jungle by guerrillas. Pastrana being Epstein's back channel to Cuba, of course. We uncover that on at least one of the occasions, Epstein and Maxwell's travels line up shockingly close to reports of delivery of a weapon system by the AOC to the Israelis. With gun running points on the board, we then construct a preliminary case lending weight to an angle that I've seen numerous people clamor to see chase, namely the possibility that Epstein was some sort of drug smuggler in his own right. Tagging off the ties, drug-laden CIA, God, what is with me today? Proprietary airlines we've covered in other articles. We examine Epstein files documents that show Epstein was the subject of a pending DEA investigation. I go one step further, though, and really sink my teeth deep into the paper trail surrounding the aircraft guarantee and Fred Machado plane registration laundering service that counted pseudo-American cartels as their primary clients. We show possibly for the first time that Epstein actually purchased a helicopter that was once registered to the P.O. boxes in One Horse and Zero Airstrip Town, Onalaska, which were the addresses affiliated with the Delaware Trust that Machado and his Oklahoman co-conspirators would set up to hold cartel planes under, some of which were later seized with tons of blow on board. From there, we return our attention to the Epstein nexuses, surreptitious landing on Cuba's shores, beginning to lay out a chronology of their activities, history that runs the gamut from Epstein's modeling agent, John-Luc Brunel, exploited recruitment of impoverished Cuban models under the fall, and text message breadcrumbs alleging Epstein and Glenn Dubin bought sex slaves on the island, not to mention speculation surrounding a secret honeypot war, Ghislaine and Ted Watt's harebrained pursuit of Cortez's gold, and Atlantis using a deep-sea trawling vessel sailed by a Russian defector off the Cuban coast, Epstein's facilitation of the UAE and Sultan bin Sulayman's bid to land dockwork and logistics contracts for all of Cuba and Venezuela's ports during the heyday of Chavez's base expropriation. And lastly, Epstein's primary Cuban exile contact, Pepe Fanul, who brings us back to the present anti-Castro revanchism in the Caribbean under Trump and Narco Rubio, as the Sultans of Sugar were some of the staunchest backers of both men. Trying to lay off spoilers, this will bring us back to Iran-Contra and the Cuban connections to Iran, as we examine the Fanjul brothers and possibly Epstein's links to CIA assassin Jorge Mascanosa and the largest Gusano lobbying and anti-Castro org in the country, which coincidentally enough was also a slush fund for terrorism throughout the Americas, and much more besides, all of which goes to show that Jeffrey Epstein and his partner Ghislaine Maxwell and the Israeli intel milieu from which they were cultivated were directly involved in parastatal anti-communist crusade maneuvers in the Americas in a dirt on hands capacity for exceeding what anyone would have suspected. Their maneuvers along the Colombia-Cuba connection have contributed to the Epstein Empire's shield the Americas and Don Rowe doctrine geopolitic we find ourselves subjected to today in roundabout, albeit indelible ways. With that, let's roll the chat, and we will come back to our final segment in a second, digging into the secret history of Polymarket. I have a fun little dig into some of Obama's background, particularly his glowy stepdad, and some other stuff there. We'll dig into that before we get into it. But let's roll the chat. Say some more hello. See what you guys have to say. Some more good mornings. Let's check in. Tom33 said, would like to hear Tyler's input on the defamation. Yeah, I know. We need to get Tyler back on one of these times. Yes. Oh, in reference to the, it'd be nice to hear from Tyler and Clint both during Matt's absence. Okay, maybe an idea to kick around. Yeah, maybe get them on. What else we got? Tom, polygraphs retarded. Yep. Good morning. Hey, say what now? Good morning. Good morning. Bug Fight says he's a handsome boy. You are a handsome boy, Bug Fights. Good morning, Oxtail says hello, everyone. Good morning and good luck today. Thank you, good sir. Good morning to you. Ooh, we got some more jewels in the chat. It's saying eagle. Did you say eagle or did send an emoji and it just shows up as eagle on my end or something? Either way, I appreciate the jewels, I guess. Thank you. What else we got here? User chatted says it would be dope if 10 people hit the like button. You know who you are. I'm assuming we have more watchers than likers right now. He knows what you're doing. He sees you. What else we got? You guys are talking about paying medical bills. Man, you guys really have quite the chats in the chat, don't you? All right, cool. Well, Bobo's out of here. Everyone say bye to Bobo. He left after carrying on a full-on conversation chat. Love it. I love it. All right, let's get into the secret history of Polymarket. Like I said, just kind of ease into our coverage. I thought it'd be fun, and plus, I love this guy. The RJ Moro account at Toxic Tiramisu. His tweets typically are these, or just kind of, he gives a quick breakdown of a handful of excerpts and also provides the excerpts from different pieces of literature for us to dig through. Today, we are pulling from The Manufacturing of a President by Wayne Madsen, and then also Poisoner in Chief by Stephen Kinzer. I read that one. I've never read the first one. Poisoner in Chief is a good book. He's referring to Gottlieb, particularly, who was the head of MK Ultra. He was a poisoner in chief there. But I thought this kind of fits for our coverage of Polymarket because we're kind of going to the history and all these. This person's connected to that person. It's a little bit kind of like, while I do think it's super interesting, it is hard to not. Sometimes it's hard in this to not glaze your eyes a little bit over because it's all sanitized. It's all the this guy's economic connection. This tech dork did that tech dork thing, and it's all boring. And this former DARPA project that tracks these things is now in the private. It just all seems so sanitized, so boring. But I wanted to give you guys a similar such thing to kind of get the excitement going before we got into the reading, but more in a less sanitized because. For example, this is what I'm getting at. This is Lolo Soetoro. Obama's stepfather was a CIA-trained officer who joined the 1965 coup that overthrew Sukarno. He later worked for Mobil Oil, a Rockefeller company, the family that financed MK Ultra. Sukarno collapsed vomiting in 1965, probably from Sidney Gottlieb's MK Ultra poisoning program. And that's Obama's stepdad. Now I bring this up as I said, all the connections, but now this is obviously holy shit, that's way more juicy. We're talking Obama, we're talking intrigue, we're talking espionage, we're talking people getting killed, we're talking MK Ultra. So you can see, it's literally basically the same thing, sort of. We're talking about with these history thing, but this is the not sanitized version. This is the fun. So let's dig a little bit into this. Let's go through some of these excerpts. I'll give this a retweet as I tend to do anything we cover on this show. Because I'm not going to read the full excerpts on all of these, but read some of them. So here, at least read the highlighted portion. So Lolo Soetoro, the reserve Indonesian army officer, called back into service in the army in 1965 from a CIA-supplied scholarship that began in 1962 at the East-West Center, was in fact a foot soldier in the putschist cabal of Suharto, the man who the CIA designated as a leader of the 1965 coup. Those unfortunate enough to be tagged as communists or Sukarno supporters were targeted for elimination by the CIA, which turned the target list over Suharto's army of officers, including Lolo Soetoro. So the stepdad of Obama, literally basically assigned to kill people. In Indonesia, the CIA Pentagon program to infiltrate villages and report on political allegiances was called Project Prosyms, Prosyms. The Project Prosyms was a reference listed in the CIA Intel Handbook for Eastern Indonesia, dated 1966. The reference states American University Special Operations Research Office, Project Prosyms, Psychological Operations, Indonesia, June 1961. Here's another excerpt. In 1970, after leaving the army, Lolo Soetoro went to work for Mobil, which was assured of no interference from the pro-U.S. Suharto government. Lolo Soetoro also worked for Union Oil of California. However, even the CIA's brief conceded the rubber concessions to the U.S. rubber company, Hawaiian Sumatra Plantations, and Goodyear Tire and Rubber were due to expire in 1965, and the Indonesian government made it clear as early as September 1960 that when the concessions expired 5 years later, they would revert to government control. So, sorry, we did jump from paragraph to paragraph there. They're referring to a brief that these corporations are no longer going to control this region. This is going to revert to government control, which I'm assuming they probably had some sort of socialist government at the time. A lot of people don't know. A lot of the CIA operations going on in that time were basically kind of that. They were essentially Americans, intel agencies murdering people for corporations in Central and South America. So this is where some of the commie types have a little bit of ground to stand on here. So obviously I'm not a fan of socialization or the government generally, but when you have another government that's essentially taking a corporation, pretending as if it's a actual private company or whatever, and backstopped by in other foreign governments, shady tactics division or whatever. This is what you get. It's not quite a simple herder capitalism, is it? All right, continuing on. We get on July 20th, 1965, Lolo Soetoro had been in the United States receiving CIA and Pentagon-funded training since September 18th, 1962, quickly left Hawaii for Indonesia. Amy Ann Soetoro received her U.S. passport on July 19, 1965, before Lolo Soetoro left for Indonesia, and just as events were heating up in Indonesia. In August, Sukarno committed the arch sin as viewed by the West and quasi-CIA support foundation organizations like the Ford Foundation. Sukarno withdrew Indonesia from the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and Interpol. In August, while receiving a foreign delegation, Sukarno began to vomit uncontrollably and collapse. This was during the height of the CIA's assassin program led by the Black Sorcerer, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the head of MKUltra, who had previously attempted the poisonings of Fidel Castro, Iraqi leader Abdul Karim Qasem, and Congo's Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba. So it's looking like Obama's dad probably had something to do with the coup in, what was this? Where did we say this was at again? This was in, I already forgot the country, Indonesia. So it looks like he may have been involved in the coup over there in Indonesia. Here's some more excerpts from this. This is a copy unexpectedly surfaced in 2007, making it the only full-length MKUltra document known to have survived intact. That's kind of irrelevant. I don't know what this part really has to do. This is just talking about Gottlieb, not really tying into the rest of this. But either way, let's get back into the reading, the secret history of Polymarket. As I told you guys, they were getting the Napster fella, as I've said numerous times. For those who saw like the Social Network, the Facebook movie, he was the Justin Timberlake character. He was the Napster guy. Well, for the purposes of this spooky tech world, he's kind of seems to be this go-between. They're calling him a link between worlds. He seems to be like the link between like the Thiel universe of like the people more directly in tap with the whole like, government side of things and these DARPA things. And then you have Sean Parker, this kind of this link to this like other guy, this, what did we say his name was? Kaplan. I think Kaplan's the guy who started Polymarket. I think it's who we focused on, I believe, in the last, not the last bit, but the one before that. So he's the link. He was kind of like the point man here. Now, let's get a little bit into him. So Sean Parker was born in 1979 in Fairfax County, Virginia, to an advertiser and an oceanographer. While plenty have been written about Parker, surprisingly few writers have explored the interesting and relevant background of his father. Bruce Parker Jr., Sean's father, spent years working for various government oceanic institutes across the United States, including stints as the chief scientist of the National Ocean Service and NOAA, a director of the Coast Survey Development Laboratory, and a former director of the World Data Center for Oceanography, among others. During his time at the NOAA, his department worked closely with the CIA in a data-sharing effort spearheaded by Vice President Gore, known as Project Medea. Parker's then boss, the NOAA, D. James Baker, was a critical part of Project Medea's team. Years later, in 2009, Parker Jr. became an active member of the Edge Foundation, founded by John Brockman and largely financed by Jeffrey Epstein. We've talked about the Edge Foundation dinners a few times. That's where you see some of the pictures with, I think Elon Musk was in some of the pictures. I want to say Thiel showed up to these too. I think Zuckerberg, but yeah, the Edge Foundation's quite the little. It also ties, as you mentioned, Brockman there. It originally began as I believe a regular publication, this avant-garde sort of journalism or writing of sorts, and then it expanded to this whole foundation that we have now here. He even penned an introduction for the Edge special event in 2011 titled "When We Cannot Predict," in which the first sentence claims that prediction is the very essence of science. Prior to his time at NOAA, Parker worked directly with the U.S. Navy, including a summer at the U.S. Naval Underwater Sound Laboratory, and 2 years supplying the Department of Defense with data as an oceanographer at the U.S. Naval Oceanographic Office. Notably, the NOAA and the Navy have long partnered frequently on joint ventures, whereby NOAA technology and data were used for both military and civilian objectives. Sean's grandfather, water skiing pioneer Bruce Parker Sr., had his own history with the Navy, helping them train porpoises in the Caribbean. The water ski schools owned and operated by Parker Sr. were partnered with Harry Conover, whose modeling agency was seeded by former U.S. President Gerald Ford, and whose wife at the time, Candy Jones, later became the earliest MK Ultra whistleblower years before the Church Committee exposed the CIA project's existence. While his father's lengthy career at the NOAA and the Navy likely saw him brush up against the intelligence community and intelligence assets at times, Sean Parker's own trajectory would see him interact much more closely with these groups. According to a 2011 Forbes profile on Sean Parker, the FBI rated the 15-year-old then hacker for illegally hacking into websites associated with government websites in a Fortune 500 company. He was ultimately let off with community service. I do gotta say, though, it's so weird how often you hear this sort of story. I mean, maybe I've dug too often. Maybe I'm seeing patterns that really kind of aren't there. I've just dug too deep in too many things, but I feel like I vaguely recall, I think even McVeigh had something like this. He had some weird story about the feds approaching him way before any of the stuff happened. Something to do with some tech hacking or some sort of shit like that. And there's a couple other ones that I can't recall right now. I want to say it was one of either the Columbine guys or maybe it was Sandy Hook. I swear this has happened a few other times, some similar sort of story like this, but just a thing I noticed. Anyways. During his community service sentence, Parker described meeting a punk rock princess with whom he lost his virginity as an incredible cosmic irony. Parker furthered, "It was the most romantic experience of my life, and they only met her because I'd been raided by the FBI." As the story goes, shortly thereafter, Parker was then recruited by the CIA himself after his success at a local computer science fair. See, all ladies are CIA, proof right there. Parker has claimed, all chicks are feds, I guess is what I meant to say. Parker has claimed that when presented with the CIA's offer, he chose instead to work at Mark Pincus's startup Freeloader. He later joined the DC-based internet service provider UUNet, a company that claims to have been the first commercial internet service provider that employed many former members of DARPA who had built an early iteration of the internet known as ARPANET. Parker's former boss, Mark Pincus, later founded the juggernaut Facebook game company Zynga, which at one point accounted for around 10% of the social media giant's income. Pincus would also come to work with and invest alongside Parker, including in Polymarket, after making critical early investments in several earlier Parker-linked companies such as Napster and Facebook. Here are the pictures of the guy. You got Sean Parker on the left here and Sean Fanning on the right. Actually, I think I might have been wrong, I guess, now that I think about it, because I kept saying this is the Justin Timberlake guy. Judging by this picture, I bet you it was actually Sean Fanning was the guy. So there's these two co-founders. If you look at this picture here, sorry for the audio listeners, but if you look at this picture, let's be real, the guy on the right makes far more sense to be the guy that they got cast as Justin Timberlake. The guy on the left looks nothing like Justin Timberlake. So, I mean, whatever, maybe. I guess it could have technically be either guy. They're both just a white guy. But either way, I guess maybe I was wrong there. I kept repeating throughout this, the guy played by apparently there were two founders of Napster. They're co-founders. So we got Sean Parker and Sean Fanning. So Just to clear that up, not sure. You know what? For shits and gigs, let's look it up real quick. Who did Timberlake play in Social Network? Let's look that up just to clear it up, so I don't keep repeating this retardation. He portrayed Sean Parker. Well, actually, shit, I was wrong then. He did play the guy that he looks less like, so it is the guy on the left. So I was right the whole time. Sorry, that was a pointless little sidebar there, but okay, it's the guy on the left. It is Sean Parker, so I was right the whole time. But I guess with that, there is another guy. There's another co-founder. There's Sean Fanning here, and he's the guy who would have made way more sense to be cast by as Timberlake. But continuing on. Around the same time Parker began programming at UUNet, Microsoft acquired a 13% in the company. In an August 2011 email to Jeff Staley, Jeffrey Epstein implied that Parker, including his teams at Facebook and Spotify, were affiliated with Gates and his entourage. While Parker should have been in high school, he instead earned $80,000 his senior year and wasn't going to school. So, all right, according to Parker, I was technically at a co-op program, but in truth was just going to work. It was during this period that Parker met fellow teenager Sean Fanning online and alongside a couple of friends, founded the quick-to-fail internet security firm Crosswalk. While not much is available about the firm online today, seemingly the general concept was that two hackers, Sean and Sean, would share their expertise on breaking into online systems with companies looking to strengthen their cybersecurity. After his senior year with his co-op program earnings in hand, Parker put off pursuing college to fly out to San Francisco and co-founded the pioneering music sharing site Napster with Fanning. Parker referred to his time at Napster as Napster University, explaining it was a crash course in intellectual property law, corporate finance, entrepreneurship, and law school. Parker furthered that some of the emails I wrote when I was just a kid who didn't know what he was doing are apparently in law school textbooks. Despite Napster eventually succumbing to a deluge of high-profile litigation, Parker's model for disregarding bureaucracy and legislation in the pursuit of technological disruption was established by the young founder's indifference to the legal context surrounding his company's services. Which, to that, big ups to that guy. Fuck IP. IP is fake and gay. Ron Conway, an early investor in PayPal and Google, among other stalwarts, met Parker and Fanning at the onset of Napster, and has backed practically every Parker project since. Fanning later referred to Conway as like family to me, explaining that he's such a big part of who I am today. However, not every Parker-backed venture was a success, such as a failed startup Plaxo, which sought to auto-update a person's email address book and was later called a precursor to social networking. Parker was infamously forced out of that company in 2004. Shortly after being kicked out of Plaxo, Parker saw a simply designed website, thefacebook.com, on the computer owned by his roommate's girlfriend, who was then attending Stanford. Parker immediately emailed its creator, Mark Zuckerberg, much like he had done with Fanning, and offered to help him with his website. Matt Kohler, who joined Facebook shortly after Parker, noted the similarity himself. Napster and Facebook are two of the most significant companies in the history of the internet, and in both cases, Parker spotted them earlier than anyone, other than the people who invented them. By June 2004, Parker had moved into the infamous Facebook villa and became an essential player in the construction of the juggernaut Facebook. Now Meta is today. Now, I do want to back up a little bit, because one thing I did find particularly interesting in all of this is that he was at one point earlier on referred to as one of Bill Gates' boys or guys or something. This was around his senior year, and he was just still a kid in high school who had kind of he'd been, didn't they say, I think we read in here earlier, the CIA had, approached him before for, his hacking and this and that. And now here he is, seemingly loosely associated with Gates, according to Epstein somehow, as one of his guys, as a seemingly, I believe, kind of in his senior year of high school. I'm just saying this young, gifted boy, with these high up people, I'm just pointing out a few patterns. I'm just saying Epstein was very big on trying to find gifted people. Just noticing some stuff. That's all I'm saying. So, anyways, continue on. So just kind of interesting how these people move around in here. While Conway decided to initially pass on investing due to concerns with Parker's then failing Plaxo's contact book company, the second person they called early PayPal employee and Pincus's longtime friend Reid Hoffman was too busy founding LinkedIn and instead connecting a duo with his former boss, Peter Thiel. Thiel quickly invested and joined the board. Joining Thiel and Hoffman was Hoffman's close friend and Parker's former boss, Mark Pincus. Forbes later referred to Parker as an early Facebook business veteran who helped the college-age Facebook founders network around Silicon Valley, set up routers, and meet benevolent investors like Thiel, Hoffman, and Pincus. Forbes also quotes Zuckerberg as stating that Sean was pivotal in helping Facebook transform from a college project into a real company, suggesting that without Sean Parker, Facebook's enormous success may not have materialized at all. So we're kind of seeing, I think you can kind of see what I'm getting at. I was kind of pointing out the patterns, and then kind of that, as they titled this segment, he's like the link between worlds or whatever. I think you can kind of get what I'm getting at. He's kind of like Bill Gates' boy, kind of this young phenom. He's just like he's like this founder's fun twink, is almost what it seems like, kind of. Like he's your guy. You reach out, and you're like you bring somebody into the fold type thing. He's your cutout of sorts. Like a CIA cutout, kind of like, or what we doing? Not Oracle. Sorry. Palantir, CIA, potato. Parker, Zuckerberg, and Thiel went on to change the internet and pave the way for further exploration of the concepts of digital identity, digital content distribution, digital community, and even digital currency, all essential pillars of the now blossoming prediction market industry. 2005, Parker was accused of possessing cocaine during a house party at a rental under his name. And although he's never charged, he was essentially forced off the Facebook board. Well, that's lame. Despite this, Thiel has claimed that he does not think Sean ever really left Facebook and has continued to be involved in many ways. It's over a cocaine charge? That's whack. I mean, whatever. It was mid-2000s, different time, I guess. The next year, in 2006, Parker was hired by Thiel and became a partner at Thiel's founder fund. All right, hit the booty hole big time. There he famously courted and advised the team behind Spotify to legally commercialize the digital music industry. It's succeeding exactly where Napster failed. Thiel reiterated his admiration for Parker, referring to him as a brilliant entrepreneur who is somehow transforming the United States and is not understood by society. Not long after, Parker stated that it's technology, not business or government, that's the real driving force behind large-scale societal shifts. This idea is similar to those expressed by Parker's boss Thiel, who would describe technology as a way to exert unilateral change on the world and is therefore an incredible alternative to politics. Given that Thiel views technology as the most effective way to exert unilateral change on a society and as a way to bypass public consent, his view that Parker and his companies have been key to transforming the United States takes on increased significance. By the way, here's a picture real quick of, he's from left to right. Here's Ken Howery. I'm not quite sure. I don't really know much about that guy. In the center here, we got Peter Thiel, and then Sean Parker here, the guy we've been talking about now on the right. I once again still stand by, what the absolute fuck? How was this guy cast as Justin Timberlake in The Social Network? Especially when the other co-founder of Napster looks way more like Justin Timberlake. So either way, look at that guy in the top right-hand corner and tell me what an absolute fuck. What a crazy move casting Justin Timberlake as this guy. Anyway, I still can't get over it. Continuing on, one should also consider the early role of Parker and Thiel at Facebook alongside their respective connections to the American national security. So they even try to make him like the cool guy, from what I remember, right? I mean, it's been so long since I watched that movie, but I remember Justin Timberlake was like the cool Napster guy coming in. And meanwhile, it's this fucking curly-haired dork. Like, fuck off. All right, anyways. One should also consider the early role of Parker and Thiel at Facebook alongside their respective connections to the American national security state. Parker had early run-ins with the FBI and was sought out by the CIA. As detailed earlier in this piece, Thiel was also actively working to privatize at least some programs of DARPA's Information Awareness Office at the time Parker contacted him about the Facebook.com. Having just privatized DARPA's TIA program into Palantir, Thiel and perhaps Parker certainly saw in Facebook a company that could be molded to serve as more than just a social network. Thiel likely saw its utility as an analog to the shuttered sister project of TIA, LifeLog, particularly given the fact that Thiel was known to have been meeting with John Poindexter, the close friend of LifeLog's project manager Douglas Gage during this time. Thiel's fondness for Parker and his belief that Parker has played a major role in transforming the United States may lie in Parker's outsized role in developing what we could call the Napsterization model for a given industry that many Thiel-linked ventures have since followed. Parker's Napster, even though it failed, was able to test the regulatory environment and determine what was needed for a successor to emerge as a dominant de facto monopoly in that industry with the blessing of regulators. In the case of Napster's successor, Spotify, it was Parker, then at Thiel's Founders Fund, who spotted a worthy vessel for his ultimate ambition that began with Napster. Subsequently, this Napsterization model has been applied in several Thiel-linked companies, including Facebook itself via its attempts to launch its Libra stablecoin, as detailed previously by Unlimited Hangout. Now, I do want to hone, maybe one day, say, as we do a segment getting a little bit more into that, like this connection that I'm kind of teasing at right now, the Spotify connection. But, I mean, we've been talking a lot about a certain character. Many people allude to perhaps being controlled op of some sort. Remember this whole big Spotify deal? That may ring a bell in some people's minds. Remember that old thingy? How Thiel's Founders Fund's a little bit linked into here. Just throwing that out. For example, Facebook itself faced many legal battles during its formative years and thus employed many heavy hitters with ties to the public sector as legal counsel, including former State Department official Jennifer Newstead, who had previously helped draft the Patriot Act. And their Facebook lawyer, Ted Ulyat, had worked in George W. Bush's White House before Facebook. Ulyat himself was suggested to Zuckerberg by Mark Capuscio, a lawyer who had successfully represented AOL in landmark litigation regarding EU approval, an outcome that helped globally enshrine American-made interest during the Internet's proliferation. Both Capuscio and Ulyat worked at Kirkland & Ellis, the law firm hired to defend Jeffrey Epstein, while Capuscio helped Parker and Thiel deregulate and disrupt the electronic cigarette market as the general counsel for the now bankrupt NJOY, the first e-vape company to receive FDA approval. This Napsterization model is evident in Copland's comments about token union, which he once referred to as an economic experiment that could ultimately prove to be an integral part and one of the leading methods of storing values in the token ecosystem of tomorrow. It is certainly interesting that Copland would be able to attract millions of dollars in seed funding from figures such as Lou Kerner and become deeply partnered with Banker for something that was seen as an economic experiment and not a viable for-profit company. That is, of course, unless the goal of both Copland and his backers at Token Union was economic experimentation with the goal of Napsterizing major aspects of this industry with a focus on the Ethereum ecosystem. Notably, in a recent media profile, Copland was asked if he viewed Polymarket as a technological descendant of Napster, to which Copland said there are parallels. While Copland was building the Ethereum-focused Token Union, the Ethereum-based prediction market platform Augur was taking off, advised by Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin and Robin Hansen, and financed in part by a Thiel Fellowship. Augur eventually failed, in quotes, to succeed in creating a globally successful prediction market. Developed and maintained by the Forecast Foundation nonprofit, Augur had hinted, before it became largely relevant and Krug left the foundation, that would offer a widely anticipated for-profit spin-off. Shortly after Krug stopped working at Augur, he joined Sean Parker at Thiel's Founders Fund. In keeping with the Napsterization model, Krug and Founders Fund, with lessons learned from Augur, would become early investors and advisors to the for-profit Polymarket. Krug has since commented on the symmetry between the evolution of Napster into Spotify via Sean Parker at Founders Fund and the evolution of Augur into Polymarket via Krug's role at Founders Fund. So kind of starting to get into the final role here. We're getting into this evolution, this revitalization from this like TIA/PAM, whatever the fuck, DARPA, dead project, now morphing sort of into, we've kind of covered the characters, now we're kind of getting into morphing into Augur, which will then morph into Polymarket, and we're also going to get into one of the major characters that facilitated this in the next episode, Joey Krug, so we'll get to know him in the next one. And I think after that, we just have one more segment. So we should have just two more parts on this thing, and then I'm leaving it at that. We will not go into part 2 of this series. You guys can go over to Unlimited Hangout if you want to find that one at that point. But I think we will probably at least do 2 more segments on this read-through to finish it out. But with that, let's roll the chat, say some more good mornings, and then we will get on out of here. Let's check in on you beautiful people. Tom 33 says Jeffrey Epstein is the Edging Foundation. Imagine that. Good morning, Fire Pixie. Good to see you here. Good morning. Good morning. Yes, Marty Mac says, oh, Napster, I missed the days waiting all night for one song to download. Yep. Alien Big Cat bring up John C. Lilly. Yeah, that made me think of it too. A little bit of callback when we were talking about Obama's dad, I think a little bit ago, right? And then we were talking about Obama's dad. What was the connection to dolphins there? I forgot. Or was that not Obama's dad? What was that? No, I think it was Obama's dad when we were covering that earlier. He was the one that had the weird connection to some like dolphins thing where he was like training dolphins in like espionage or some shit. Yeah. I thought of John C. Lilly too there. I was like, what? Dolphins? Is he fucking those dolphins? Was Obama's dad fucking dolphins? Anyways, I think I like to think Obama's maybe Obama's part dolphin. That would check out. That would totally make sense. Everyone talks about these lizard hybrids. Nobody talks about dolphin hybrids. So with that, guys, for those who want to support what I'm doing, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. On Twitter, that's at TowerGangJose. Everywhere else is a No Way Jose podcast. And you can find it. I already said all the places you can find it. And if you want to support the show the best way you can, you do it with money over at patreon.com. There's No Way Jose 2020. Top left-hand corner, you got a QR code, brings you to the same place. The low level of $2 gives you a whole host of perks. I do about 1 to 2 episodes behind the paywall every week. Keep about 3 to 4 at any time behind there. That's what we shoot for. Also give you guys access to ad-free RSS feed. Give you guys access to Telegram, the pre-show, the post-show, and video calls on me and Austin's weekly live call-in show, Already Dead, which goes out on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. That's tonight, baby. Be there. Call in. Hang out. And also a big shout out to the highest level of my Patreons. Big thank you for their support. My previous Ghost and Tower Gang, Outlander Toad, also at Brigadies, at ZVRCK, at _Invizeal, Tinto, at John Clebo, big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Taggis, Winter Cover Kids No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, and Jacob Mergat, a Biblical Energy Podcast, and John Black, you beautiful bastard. And with that, guys, I do have a little bit of a fun outro for you guys today. I hope I don't get hit for a copyright strike for this. If this just goes to darkness and the episode ends right here when you watch this later, you could tell that it did get hit for copyright and I had to cut it out. But either way, here's a fun little video I found. It's actually, I guess to give a little bit of a shout out, this is from, actually, let me see if I can find, I'll find the name of the, damn, I was trying to find the name of the, there we go. Let's go to the actual,
Ian?
Oh, here it is. It's Uber Prank, pausing my, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the actual channel so I can give them some ups. So in the off chance if when they go through here, like, who, somebody stole my copyright shit, they're like, oh, well, he gave me a big ups. This is A-Dubs, who has 1.62 million subs. So they don't really need the shout out, but Uber Prank, bossing my passenger around, and he liked it. I just thought it was a pretty funny little video that you guys would probably get a good kick out of. This is one of these like pranks, like this is like an old taxi prank. But the funny thing here is more the response from the person who's getting pranked here. It's just kind of, this is basically for the old Tower Gang people here. This basically is like exactly how I would think it would go down if this bitch tried to pull this shit on like Cole or something. So it makes it all the more endearing. If anything, the lady here is kind of annoying. Like, why would you do this gay little prank? It's the guy. The guy here is a star. Dude's rock. With that, guys, we'll see you all tomorrow. Should be tomorrow. I don't see any reason why I won't be here tomorrow. Also tonight, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Beat there. Call in. But with that, guys, we will see you on the next one. Also, Bug Fight, same, more of a LimeWire guy. Yeah, I was more of a LimeWire guy, too. I really wasn't so much into Napster. That was before me. But with that, guys, enjoy this goofy little prank. Like I said, I like to imagine this is Cole being given trouble, being pranked. But either way, love you all. See you guys in the next one.
Alex, right?
Yes. Take your shoes off.
Take my shoes off, really?
Yeah.
I'm wearing Converse.
Okay. I don't really care what kind of shoe you're wearing. I just...
Is it like, you have OCD, or...?
That's a really offensive question to just straight up ask someone.
Well, I only ask because, like, I have a mild case of OCD, so I would understand. I mean, I'm kind of like in a mood for this, so I don't really mind.
In the mood for what?
Like, if you want me to take my shoes off, I will.
Well, I asked.
I like to keep my car clean, too.
Look, I can't really go until...
My shoes are off?
Until your shoes are off. And make sure that they're facing upwards, so the bottom of your shoes aren't touching any part of my car. Please don't laugh at my requests.
Alright, shoes off.
Put your seatbelt on.
I've honestly never had to take my shoes off in Uber before, but...
Oh, could you actually not use your phone in here?
Okay.
Do you just want to give it to me? I can hold it up here.
Sure.
Okay. It's just a no phone use policy in here.
Alright, I don't see any signs saying that, but...
I'm the sign. and I'm verbalizing it to you.
Okay.
Everything's so funny to you, huh?
No, I love this type of shit, honestly. This is great.
What type of shit?
I mean, you're being my entertainment for the day. I've had a pretty shitty day so far. So now I'm going day drinking. I'm gonna go get swifty.
Is that where I'm bringing you right now?
Hell yeah.
Day drinking?
Yeah.
It's quite the... I don't... It's a sin.
What, drinking or day drinking?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean...
It's just making me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Well, I'm not drunk right now.
Right. I
wish I was.
I feel... look, I don't want to be a source of entertainment for you. I'm not here for your amusement.
Right.
Okay? I want my car fucking clean.
It is. I guarantee it.
Great.
So how long you been doing this, Alex?
Don't ask me that.
This is what you do, like...
Let me ask you questions. Alright? Tell me your deepest secret.
My deepest secret... I don't know. I was born in Kansas. That's pretty cool.
It's not a fucking secret. It's public information. I'm serious. It's not public
Half
information.
the friends I have don't even know I was born in Kansas.
Well, then you have some shitty friends. What are you doing out here?
Well, I've been in California for a while. It's LA. Just moved here recently.
Why? Are you trying to be a pop star?
You think I'd have a shot?
I don't know. Can you sing?
I can sing, but what I mainly like, I use my voice. So yes, singing is one of my talents, but my main talent is like voices, like voice acting.
Do it.
Do what?
It.
I mean, it's a pretty broad statement to say do it.
What's your favorite voice to do?
My best voice, Alex.
It's weirding me out that you keep calling me by my name.
Okay, I won't say your name. I'm sorry. It's just how I was raised. I'm sorry. Like, I apologize.
Call me Madame.
Madame. I can do that. My best voice is Mickey Mouse. I was born to do Mickey Mouse, and that's my dream. That's what I'm striving for.
Can I have a conversation with Mickey Mouse?
If you would like, yeah, sure.
Hi, Mickey.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Did you eat breakfast this morning?
I sure did.
What did you eat?
I had some pancakes, and that's about it.
Oh, what are you doing today? Mickey can't go day drinking.
I know, I was about to say.
Well, I'm gonna go back to work.
What's work?
Basically, I ask people over and over if they can say Miska, Muska, Mickey Mouse. Can you say it?
No. What the fuck does that mean?
Well, it means Miska, Muska.